Hey folks, very excited to be doing this conversation today with Jonathan Simnett. Jonathan is a communications guru. He's based out of London, but he's a globetrotter. He's got a viewpoint on a lot of things around on the communications world across the world. He does a bunch of things. The way we met together was when Jonathan, made PR happen for us in Europe through his agencies, of course, right? So it has been a very great experience, and we learned a lot from that experience, as it were. So without further ado, Jonathan, I just wanted to get into the world of PR and what has changed, and I wanted to focus a little bit on the business model around the PR world.
Yeah, well, you're right. PR is changing very rapidly at the moment. I think people need to understand that PR encompasses all communications. Often it's confused with just media relations. The reality is, over the last 10 years with the pervasion of the internet, is there's now an enormous amount of routes to get your message across. So you might want to get your message across through LinkedIn or Script, say, or Facebook, or Instagram, or any one of many blogs around the world, Rajiv's in particular. So that means that if you're a PR agency or if you're a PR, the thing you really, really need to focus on is a generation of content, compelling content that people are going to be interested in. The issue then is making that content relevant for the different media that are out there. So if you're producing a piece of content that's, say, a written opinion, that's not going to be very good for SlideShare. That opinion needs to be in the form of slides for that to be useful. So that means that many public relations firms now and public relations departments are starting to follow what we call the publishing house model, which means that you are like a publishing house, but you're using third parties to distribute that media around the world.
Very interesting, very interesting. So obviously that has profound implications as compared to a world where your Rolodex of journalists that you had was the dominant distinguisher in terms of your competence as a communications professional. So what does that mean for an agency today? Where is the cost and the revenue base shifting? How do you make money in that?
Yeah, well, the cost clearly is to attract the best and brightest people to work with you. Mm-hmm. And I think that means that public relations generally is professionalising. Mm-hmm. As you say, that image of people who had a Rolodex of journalists and probably drank one too many gin and tonics in their work has disappeared. So that means that PR's become much, much more strategic. Now, as soon as you say that word strategic, as anybody that works for Accenture will tell you, that means that the costs go up. Mm-hmm. Because there's a constant war for talent, and good people don't come cheap because mm-hmm. there's few of them. However, because of the power of these new media that we can now deal with, PR can be incredibly impactful. Mm-hmm. So, I generally believe that the bang for the buck has gone up with PR. The issue is that the absolute cost has also mm-hmm. gone up. Mm-hmm. And the other thing, of course, is that the world is now seamless. Mm-hmm. I cannot put something out in the UK and assume it won't be read in India. It will be read in India in seconds. Mm-hmm. So PR professionals have to understand the global dimension of what they're doing mm-hmm. and understand that the world is not an extension of the country in which they operate. The mm-hmm. world is very different. It receives information in different ways. It does different things with that information, which means that there will be different outcomes. Mm-hmm. So the bar has shot up in public relations.
Absolutely.
I suspect a lot of public relations companies haven't quite shot up with the bar yet. Mm-hmm. But for anybody considering a career, it's a highly stimulating environment.
Very good use of words there. Brilliant. But this also brings a different question to me. So in many senses, even the agencies are trying to catch up with this. So what's happening in-house is even worse, presumably, because as the market has changed, as the consumer and how the consumer consumes information has changed, mm-hmm. right? Yes, these new trends have come out, mm-hmm. but the companies have not changed all that much, right? So what has this done to the relationship between the agency mm-hmm. and the professional inside the organization?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think the reality is a lot of client companies are struggling to catch up, and I think particularly they're struggling at the middle management level, where people are getting very worried that they're being de-skilled. They can't catch up quickly enough. To which my solution is, well, you just need to work harder to catch up. It is a world which is changing, and you have to, what do they say? keep up, follow, or get out of the way. You do one of those. However, the reality is there are a lot of talented professionals out there that can be brought in, and the most successful agency-client relationships are based on a common idea of teamwork. In that the company is, like many companies now, companies are the summary of their internal and external resources. So it requires a change of thinking, and a change of thinking which needs to happen, because if it doesn't happen, those organisations will never be able to keep up with the rate of change.
And it also seems to me that in this world where, it's almost like authenticity has come around a full circle, hasn't it, right? Earlier we used to be in a world where the chaps with the megaphone basically said whatever they needed to say, and the world had to believe it because they didn't have a choice in the matter. And now obviously, you can find out a lot more. Less than 5% of the information about a brand or something comes to you through that actual source itself. 95% of it comes from referred sources. Your friends, other people, elsewhere, the web, the blogs, and so on and so forth. What does that mean to how the organizational culture inside a company needs to change? Obviously it's the relationship between the agency and the PR professional and the communications professional, but there's also that bigger entity called the organization that's leveraging this communication skill to do that. What do they need to do in this new world?
I think one of the things that corporate management needs to realise is that it needs to keep its own people informed. It needs to be as honest with them as it can be. That's not to say they should be lying to them the rest of the time. It's just that sometimes you can't tell people things. For instance, if you're in a quiet period before an IPO, and realise that people will be able to find stuff out. They will be able to draw their own conclusions, and then they will make their own decisions. So I think you're right. I think authenticity is back. I also think honesty is back. But most of all, I believe leadership is back, because you cannot hide. You have to lead. And I think that is something which corporate management are having to get used to, being used to decades where it was about manipulation. Now leadership is back, because there's nowhere to hide.
Brilliant. And the last question, Jonathan, is about your own personal journey so far. I still remember Jonathan sort of, walking into Infosys when we were a very small entity based out of Bangalore. This was in the 1999-2000 kind of a time frame. And he sort of came and evangelized the benefits of thinking about first world communications and how we need to look at it. Right. So obviously you've been a little bit of a trailblazer in that front, because, coming from the nation that you come from. And so what drives you? What motivates you?
I'm just very lucky that I get up every morning and I am able to work with people who are changing the world. And I don't think I could want for more than that. I deal every day with incredibly talented people doing amazing things right around the world. And to me, that's more than anybody should have to actually want from a career. My wife asks me this a lot. Why are you still working? Why are you doing that? And the answer is because I love doing it. I've got an immense amount of friends all around the world that I've made through work, and it's very interesting watching everybody's development. And I'm particularly fond of some of the young executives I've hired straight out of college who are now, for instance, running communications for PayPal globally, or for Nokia globally, or IBM, or HP, or other organisations such as the Rugby Football Union and Bloomberg and people like that. And that can give you tremendous satisfaction.
Yeah, including a few tickets as well, eh?
I hope so.
Good.
You'll get some benefits.
Totally. And I'm sure you're looking forward to the Olympics in London. We are sitting in London, folks, as we are doing this, so obviously exciting times up for the city.
Yeah, well, it's going to be very exciting times for me, because I've cleverly planned to be out of the UK during the Olympics, but my choice of country was Greece, so that could be even more exciting.
Well, on that note, hopefully everything is good, exciting. Best of luck, and I'm sure I'll continue to hear from you, Jonathan.
Bye-bye.
Pleasure.